Good afternoon again, everybody. A very, very warm welcome to you all in this wonderful, beautiful city of Moscow. And in the first part of this afternoon, we had our annual general meeting, and I, at that time, thanked the Alrosa team for giving us glorious weather during our stay here. So thank you very much indeed for arranging that on top of all your other generous hospitality. Before we begin, I had a little session earlier on with the hotel management, and I'm obliged to just point out some emergency rules for you in the unlikely event that we have a fire or something happens elsewhere in the hotel. I'm told there are 3 fire exits. There is one out of that door and on your left. There is another out of that door on your right. And then there is also the emergency escape down the stairs in which many of you would have walked up in order to get here this afternoon. An alarm will sound. I'm assured that it's a distinctive enough sound that we will all recognize it as a fire alarm. So, as I say, in the unlikely event that that should happen, please be aware of where those emergency exits are. So, once again, a very warm welcome. Thank you very much indeed for all of those who have taken the time to come here, whether it is that you've come just from down the road, and as many of you also have flown in especially for this. We are very pleased to see you. We're very pleased to see so many of our members, our board members, and also those who are interested in the responsible jewellery and the many, I think, mutual objectives that we share in this cause of bringing this great industry into good practice and a leadership position, in fact. And I think through the Responsible Jewellery Council, which is driven by you, the members, I think we are in that position. So thank you again. And also, I think we'd like to start just to remind you, by the way, that this is being streamed through our YouTube channel. So the camera will be over there. I don't know whether it's going to swing around and catch you, your expressions as well, but this is all being live streamed and that for the duration of the session. Also, what I'd like to do to begin with is that we had a video made to really tell you what the responsible jewellery is about. For those of you who may not know a great deal about what it is we do, we're now just going to play a short video to give you an overview of that. Thank you.
The Responsible Jewellery Council is an international standards and certification organisation that's helping to build a responsible worldwide mining to retail jewellery and watch supply chain. Founded in 2005 by the industry for the industry to promote trust and accountability across the global supply chain. Today, it has over 1,000 members throughout 70 countries, covering more than 8,700 facilities and over 445,000 employees. Its mission is to be the recognized standards and certification organization for supply chain integrity and sustainability in the global fine jewelry and watch industry. Achieving RJC certification means meeting the highest ethical, social, and environmental standards. The RJC develops world-class standards that cover the whole supply chain, accredits independent audit firms to carry out RJC certification audits, harmonizes with numerous industry initiatives and standards to reduce audit burden, and provides member certification against its Code of Practices standard, which includes human rights, labor rights, environmental impact, mining practices, product disclosure, and many more vital areas in the jewellery supply chain. Additionally, voluntary certification against its chain of custody standard supports claims for responsibly sourced precious metals. Put simply, RJC certification helps members provide credible assurance to suppliers and customers by upholding their commitment to responsible business practices. This protects the reputation of its members and the industry, as well as connecting responsible businesses in a community of confidence, and strengthening CSR and supply chain risk management across the globe. The Responsible Jewellery Council, assurance, growth, confidence.
Thank you very much indeed. So a warm welcome also to anyone watching us online. We're very glad you also spared the time to come and see us and join in this panel discussion, and to also listen to our very welcome VIP speakers. One thing before I go on any further is, again, a very important part of it. We talked about the Responsible Jewellery Council there, and it was made by the industry for the industry, and that's a very important point to always remember, because those who helped lead this, those who have taken the RJC from what it was, some 14 original members just over a decade ago, to now well over 1,000 members, are the people, many of the people sitting here. And many of our officers, all our officers and our board members as well, we never forget that they are volunteers. They are very busy people, and the fact that they put themselves forward to serve the RJC is always a source of enormous astonishment and gratitude for me as well, and I know for the management team. So I'd just like to say that we did elect 3 new officers. We elected a new chair, and our outgoing chair, Mr. Wilfred Horner. Please stand up, Wilfred, because it was with great satisfaction that we had Wilfred as our chair for so long. And again, thank you very much indeed from all of us, I think personally and professionally, for everything that you have done for us, Wilfred. And but as we have a little bit of sad news as Wilfred going, some great news as well is that we have David Buffard from Signet as our new chair. David, I can't quite see where you are. You're right at the back. Look, being shy there. And we have a new vice chair as well. But first of all, I just wanted to acknowledge Didier, I beg your pardon, who has, again, only a very brief time, unfortunately, stayed with us as vice chair, and it's very sad that after such a short time we're saying goodbye to him. But we would like to thank him again for his dedication, his expertise. In the very short time he's been with us as deputy chair, he has given us a great deal of guidance, shared that expertise with us, and helped to drive us forward. So Didier, where are you? I can't, where are you? Didier, is he not in the room? Okay, he might be in the corridor. Okay, and also we, with profound sadness, we're saying goodbye to Mark Jenkins, also from Signet, after so many, many years. And Mark has dedicated so much of his time to making sure that this fantastic organization grows in a way that is sustainable, is robust, and of course legal. And really no one else has put in as much personal time as Mark has over the years. So again, our profound thanks to Mark for all his service, and our best wishes for your new adventures. Mark, please stand up. But again, the sad news of the parting of a good and dear friend, but also we are very excited to have Jason with us as well. And Jason has been stepped up to the mark right at the last minute. And please please stand up, Jason. And we'd like to thank you very much indeed for taking on this very important role. So thank you very much indeed for that, Jason Rubin. Even though we've had 3 new officers and we're saying goodbye to 3 other officers, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the presence of an extremely dear friend, an old friend that goes back many years. Delighted that this person was also my successor. And we are indeed fortunate that in spite of the comings and the goings, we retain at our enormous pleasure and fortune, good fortune, Ferial Zaruki as our honorary treasurer. Please stand up, Ferial. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our very special invited guests. And again, thank you very much indeed for the time that you've placed here for us to join us this afternoon. So first of all, Mr. Sergey Ivanov is the CEO of our ROSA. And again, I'd just like to thank you and your team for the fantastic hospitality that you've shown us here. Thank you very much indeed. And we will also be hearing from Mr. Alexei Moiseev, the Deputy Finance Minister here in Russia, and also Ms. Hilda Hardman, who is the chair of the Kimberley process. So we'll be hearing from all of those, all three of them, very shortly. But I'd like to start off, if I may, with Sergey. He joined the board in March 2017, and he has extensive experience of holding senior executive roles in banking and insurance sectors, and many corporate board memberships as well. He holds an honors degree in economics and finance, and from the Moscow State Institute of International Relations. So please join me in welcoming Sergey to the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew, for your introduction. Dear Chairman of RGC, Mr. David Buffard, dear Chair of the Kimberley process, Ms. Hilda Hardman, distinguished guests and invitees of the RGC annual meeting, Alrosa Alliance members, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of Alrosa, I would like to thank you for coming and welcome you here in Moscow. It's the first RGC meeting in Russia and in Moscow. And we are privileged and have great pleasure to host this meeting in Russia. Nowadays, responsible practices and sourcing are very high on the agenda of the jewelry industry. Along the supply chain, there are challenges of conflict minerals, human and labor rights violations, undisclosed synthetics, lack of transparency, and others. All these risks can ultimately shake the very foundation of our business, the consumer's confidence. In mitigating these risks, the industry has now come to a crossroads and needs a clear vision of how to move forward with elevating the global diamond and jewelry markets in the modern world. The shift in CSR and sourcing practices on the retail side demands from our industry a common and robust approach to tackling many long-standing issues, which are KPCC in need of improvement of its scope and governance, outdated WDC system of warranties, evident need of industry-wide collaboration to create a comprehensive self-regulation system, to name a few. All of them provoke a possible risk of legislative regulation and mandatory reporting, as it has happened with many other industries in the gold sector, for example. At the end of the day, the guarantee of origin and demonstration of adherence to responsible business practices becomes a key issue for jewelry marketing and industry promotion. Alrosa, as a global leader in diamond mining, is here to play its role in securing sustainability and transparency of the jewelry supply chain. The company itself conducts diamond mining and trading in accordance with high standards of social and environmental responsibility. As you know, Alrosa joined RGC less than 2 years ago, and in 2017, we went through a comprehensive sustainability audit. And today we're proud to have confirmed our business practices, achieving RGC certification for 3 years against its code of practices. Furthermore, we push for the creation of a universal and transparent supply chain through our membership in 3 major industry organizations, which is WDC, representing the industry in the Kimberley process, RGC, and DPA. Each organization plays its own crucial role in securing the consumer's confidence in fine jewelry and its lasting value. In this context, we consider RGC as an important mechanism of securing responsible supply chains and business practices in the diamond and jewelry industry that contributes to our product integrity. Alrosa is still the first and only Russian company member of the RGC, and we hope that holding the event in Moscow will raise a greater awareness of how important responsible sourcing is and give an additional impulse to the RGC development and expanding membership, including among those of Alrosa Alliance memberships. We share the belief that RGC standards must be timely improved and updated, taking into account various international initiatives and instruments of responsible sourcing and sustainability. Alrosa is willing to contribute by being actively involved into these processes. In this regard, we were honored to learn about the election of Peter Karakcheev, head of Alrosa International Relations Department, as Vice Chair of RGC. Thank you for your support and trust. I wish you fruitful discussions during the panel session and success in updating the RGC standards to secure a sustainable and responsible future for the global diamond jewelry business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. Actually, it does remind me that because I've worked so long with Peter and he always seems to be around, that it was remiss of me not to mention him earlier on and to congratulate him as also for becoming our new deputy chair. So thank you very much indeed, Peter. Congratulations. Now, if I may, I'd like to introduce Mr. Alexei Moiseev, Deputy Finance Minister of the Russian Federation. Mr. Moiseev has more than 20 years' experience in banking and finance. As Deputy Finance Minister of the Russian Federation, he is in charge of state regulation of precious metals and stone sector, including their production, manufacturing and trade, and Russia's participation in the Kimberley process. He is a graduate of State Academy of Management in Moscow in 1995 with specialization in global economics and a holder of an MBA from the University of Rochester in the United States. Mr. Deputy Finance Minister, please come to the floor.
I wonder if an MBA comment is a good or bad thing these days. But it was a long time ago, one thing I can say. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to greet you in Moscow, and I'm grateful to all the international guests who traveled here. Again, thanks to Peter, we have managed to provide good weather, and I appreciate to Alrosa all the efforts to host this meeting. Speaking of the government policies, we have long been supporting all types of international activity to try to introduce the responsible policies in jewelries. In particular, something we are focusing on these days is introducing what is, I guess, can be called as responsible supply chains on our side. What we want to do, we want to try to implement the mind to finger policies here in Russia, whereby we are currently starting to, as of June 1st actually, we're starting to implement the informational system which tracks diamonds, precious metals, and some other types of precious stones from their very production all the way into the retailer shop. And that is something we want to trace all the way to the customs if the jewelry is being exported. So hopefully, over time, this can be connected into the global system, whereby we can actually trace all and every actually stone into every jewelry, a piece of jewelry, into a particular source and a particular producer. That was something which will allow us to be confident that using the modern IT age infrastructure will allow us to be confident in what actually people buy and what people have, and that this is coming from responsible producers. Furthermore, we have specified legally in a federal law in 2015 that synthetic diamonds are not gems, are not precious diamonds. So that's Russian law specifies very, very clearly that if it's only natural diamonds that can be called diamonds, can be called precious stones. So that's something we've been also implementing and trying to impose controls. We again note and appreciate the efforts by Alrosa to develop and test the device, which will allow to try to separate precious diamonds from, natural diamonds from synthetic diamonds. That is something that is also going to be a very important part. However, we do build our most hopes on, base our most hopes on this tracking system, because unfortunately, as we discussed earlier today, the technology to detect the diamond is a cat and mouse, right? You improve technology to make a diamond, then you improve technology to detect it, and then on, and that's something which goes on. It's like a lock and a burglar. Again, this has to be done, and this will allow find out of most cases find out that diamond is synthetic, but we feel that something which will allow for a global control system, which sounds a little ambitious, but I think that something we're going to have to end up at some point is the IT system which traces, as I said, the jewelries from the producer to the finger. And in fact, there's a number of things which has to be done there. For example, when it goes from the finger back into the reproduction, it has to be traced back to the original production, and so on and so forth. So that's the same goes not only about diamonds, but also gold, which goes into the ring, and so on and so on. That's a complex system. We will start, as I said, testing the system on June 1st. We have an order from the president to implement it in full production on January 1st of next year. And over time it will involve, hopefully, also special laser-made marks on diamonds themselves that will have to be done in a way that doesn't disrupt the actual appearance of the diamond. So it has to be very, very small and readable only by special equipment. But also we have to provide additional, I guess, QR codes or something like this, which will allow people to detect where this particular diamond or this particular ring is coming from using their smartphones. So this is a complex thing. I know other countries are doing that as well, and here I hope that we can join the process. And clearly, the ultimate goal is again for us, as I said, with the RGC and the Kimberley process, to make sure that people get what they pay for, right? That people get gold and natural diamond if they pay for it, and that this is something which has not been produced in war areas or related to crime of any sort or so on. So, and that is our united goal. So I do hope that we will advance, and I'm sure that this meeting will bring us forward. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you very much indeed. I'd like now to call upon Hilda Hardman to come to the floor. Hilda is the head of European Commission Services for Foreign Policy Instruments, the FPI, and as I said earlier, the 2018 Kimberley Process Chair on behalf of the European Union. She's spent over 20 years working for the European Commission, covering external relations and economic and competitive issues. Previously, she was head of the European Commission's unit for relations with Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, and Belarus. As head of the Service for Foreign Policy Instruments, as I say, she will be serving as Kimberley Process Chair for this year. So, Hilda, thank you very much indeed. Welcome, and please come to the podium.
Уважаемый господин генеральный директор, уважаемый господин министр, dear Mr. Andrew Boone, dear Mr. David Buffar, дамы и господа, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to this annual general meeting of the Responsible Jewellery Council. Thank you for inviting me to the #1 diamond producing country in the world, and thank you for this opportunity to share with you some thoughts as 2018 chair of the Kimberley Process Certification Scheme. Ladies and gentlemen, you are well familiar with the Kimberley process. This scheme to stem the flow of conflict diamonds or rough diamonds used by rebel movements to finance conflicts, as they are defined in the Kimberley process, has been operational now for 15 years. The scheme has had a positive impact. It has helped to significantly bring down the share of what can be identified as conflict diamonds in rough diamond trade. It has also helped to change global and local attitudes. It has helped to spread the idea that natural resources belong to mining communities, not to militias, and that is meaningful. But more needs to be done. The sense of urgency remains. Kimberley process participants launched a process of review and reform in 2016. And this reform window is open until end of 2019. Now, getting this right is a matter for all of us. This is about the effectiveness of the Kimberley process. It's about the delivery of its peer review system. It's about the relevance of its core document, about the strength of its unique tripartite structure. And reform is at the heart of the EU Kimberley Process Chairmanship in 2018. Further reinforcing effectiveness is at the core of our work, and it remains our guiding aim for the months to come. Now let me start with the tripartite structure of the process. Governments, civil society and industry work together for a common goal. Since 2003, this tripartite bond has known ups and downs, successes and challenges, but it has always been up to its task, that is to defend the cause of non-conflict diamonds. And one of the duties of the Kimberley Process Chair is to encourage the tripartite to seek the best possible coherence in their actions and to support observers and participants where needed. Now, the civil society coalition in the Kimberley process has been going through an internal process aiming for wider participation and for a more active presence in the Kimberley process working bodies. This process has our full support, and it's really with great satisfaction that we see this more active role taking shape. It's also with great pleasure that we see industry and civil society deepen cooperation. The active outreach of the World Diamond Council, of which Alarosa and several of you are prominent members, is a most welcome development. Now this brings me to my second point, alluvial and artisanal mining. The EU has been supportive to mediation in a number of West African countries, and the EU continues to support regional cooperation in the Mano River Union, focusing on capacity building, on strengthening the rule of law, and further reinforcing the social environment of mining communities. We also encourage the plans of a number of Central African producing countries to meet together and step up cooperation along similar lines. And they will meet in the margins of the June intersessional meeting of the Kimberley process in Antwerp to discuss such cooperation. In our view, supporting the stability and prosperity of alluvial and artisanal mining communities is in the interest of all. And I would like to mention in this context the active role that DDI, the Diamond Development Initiative, has played in the registration of miners with a program that has strongly reinforced legal certainty for those concerned. Mr. Stefan Fischler, the president of the WDC, just told me that in the Democratic Republic of Congo alone, they have registered 200,000 artisanal miners. That's great. Now, this is just one example that contributes to our common goal, making sure that systemic violence and human rights violations in alluvial and artisanal mining really become a matter of the past, really. Now, this brings me to my third and forward-looking point. The stronger the stability is in fragile mining areas, the more trustworthy the Kimberley process certification system will be. We still cannot provide all provenance guarantees for the consumer who wants to buy responsible diamonds. Different avenues are being looked into. Technological innovation is one such avenue, a very promising one. Systems of warranty, due diligence, or reliable certification are other possible ways forward. The Responsible Jewellery Council is showing the way in certifying the chain of custody in downstream and upstream diamond trade. And we believe that an effective regulatory environment for a responsible diamond is an important element in ensuring a level playing field for the natural diamond as compared to synthetics. Now, ladies and gentlemen, together with the Indian chair of the ad hoc committee on reform and review of the Kimberley process, I was in New Delhi and Mumbai just yesterday and the day before yesterday to meet with them and to talk things through. So together with the Indian chair of this ad hoc committee on reform, the EU, in its capacity as Kimberley chair, is actively preparing concrete action on reform in follow-up to the conclusions of the Brisbane Kimberley plenary last December. The EU has made possible an independent needs assessment for the possible creation of a permanent secretariat and a multi-donor fund. That is one of the strands of the reform process, and I'm very pleased that Peter Karakcheev is leading this strand on the issue of a permanent secretariat. And we will, at the Intersessional in Antwerp in June, present this study. Another important task is to consolidate into the Kimberley process core document the range of administrative decisions adopted over the past 15 years. Now, the documentation of the Kimberley process is really matter for specialists, and we need to ensure that these documents become simple and easy to understand for everyone who has to deal with them. So that's another strand of the review process, and the European Union is leading that strand. And then is the other question of widening the scope of the core document. That's a sensitive but necessary task. And then last but not least, there is the crucial issue of the peer review system. A systematic and transparent organization of peer reviews to Kimberley process member countries is really key to the credibility of the Kimberley process. There will be a peer review visit to the Russian Federation this August, and we are confident that this really will be an example of best practices on how to deal with this. Now, we are confident that working together with all our Kimberley process partners, that it will be possible to set tangible steps forward with the principles of sustainability, inclusiveness, responsibility, and dialogue as points of reference for all of us. And with this, I thank you for your attention, and I wish you an interesting and useful discussion, and I'll be very interested to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Hilda, very much indeed. Thanks to all our very special speakers again for spending the time to be with us this afternoon. Jin, I wonder if we could just go back a couple of slides. There was one thing I just wanted to highlight, which we were talking again about the growth of the RJC, its importance, its growing importance in the industry, as together the leaders of the industry come within the RJC to take the industry forward. So we've grown from 14 members, let's say, back in the just over a decade ago. These are the numbers now, just 1,100 members. We have 765 certified members around the world, covering over 9,000 facilities, which is an excellent and astounding achievement as well. And getting on for 500,000 employees are now working in safer conditions and verified conditions. And what we hear from our members as well, who have certification, is that one of the things they perhaps didn't expect, but are finding, is that productivity is rising, retention is easier, because their employees are feeling as though they are being cared for, and they feel part of this as well, and they contribute to it as well. So it's in a very, very important part. That bottom figure, that's nearly 500,000 advocates for the kind of the objectives that we all share. So thank you very much indeed for that. So Jin, you could just go back to that first one. I'd just like to thank you though again to Sergey, to the Deputy Minister, and to Hilda. Thank you very much indeed, and please give our speakers a round of applause. Thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you, Deputy Minister. Thank you, Hilda. Please feel free to stay with us if you wish as we go into our next session. So now we're going into our panel discussion, and we are very lucky to have some excellent panelists who have all agreed to be part of this session this afternoon. First of all, again, our new Vice Chair, Mr. Peter Karachiev from Rosa, Didier Burkhardt from Bonus in Antwerp, and Thierry Silva, thank you very much indeed for joining us also from Maidstones. And also Tom, thank you very much indeed, Tom Moses from the GIA. And last but not least, Jean-Marc Libre from, who is the CEO of the Diamond Producers Association. So thank you very much indeed, all of you, for joining us. Now this is, we've just heard from Hilda earlier on, and in her speech, the importance of conflict diamonds and how that's helped change the way that we deal in diamonds, the way that we look at the trade in diamonds, the international trade in diamonds, made us more aware of where diamonds come from. And in part respect, that was also, I think, partly what informed the formation of the Responsible Jewellery Council in the first place. But today we have in the diamond industry also a very emotive subject. As we see now the emergence of laboratory-grown diamonds. And it is contentious. There are fears, there are misunderstandings within the industry, how we go forward on this in order ultimately to protect the consumer and to give the consumer an informed and transparent choice. So today, we'd like to discuss the importance of detection and disclosure in the industry, again, for the ultimate thinking of consumer confidence. What this debate is not going to be about is which one is better and which one is worse and the virtues of one over the other. What we're going to be looking at this afternoon is what do we have in place to ensure that going forward both the lab-grown sector and the natural sector can work more intelligently, more effectively together to ensure that we do have open, transparent detection systems and processes in place, and also open disclosure. So again, thank you to our panelists for joining us this afternoon on this. And I think I'd like to, if I may, start off with, so that we all know where we're starting from with laboratory-grown diamonds, is really just if we could have a lesson 101 on what a lab-grown diamond is. And I wonder perhaps, Tom, if you would be able to give us an overview from the perspective of lab. What is a laboratory-grown diamond and how are they made?
Thank you, Andy, and thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to sit with these esteemed other panelists. But to your point, your question, synthetic diamonds have the same chemical and physical properties as natural diamond, but differ in growth structure and defects. And it is those differences that allow the separation by an experienced gemologist or equipment. I would also say some people wonder about that term in synthetic and whether it's somehow judgmental or pejorative or the wrong term. But it actually is from the origin is a Greek word, and it talked about at that time was reconstructing or creating through a chemical reaction a product. And so I think that even origin holds true and really is appropriate. As you know, there are other accepted terms that are SIBJO has approved, the Federal Trade Commission of the United States, that are also appropriate in describing synthetic diamond.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Tom. And just very briefly at the end of that as well, just to make sure that everyone is sort of aware, very briefly, the difference between a laboratory-grown diamond and a simulant.
A simulant is it's another material, a simulant or an imitation, and examples of those would be CZ, cubic zirconia, or moissanite, which is silicon carbide. So entirely different composition than diamond.
Okay, thank you very much, Tom. Now, again, I think what a lot of people are interested in is what is the market volume out there? How much is it growing? And I wonder if I could bring Didier into this as well, who's done quite a lot of research into the growth and the emergence of the lab-grown sector. Didier, how much, to get to the point, how much is out there?
There is quite a lot out there, obviously. I'll elaborate on that, obviously. In 2013, when we started analyzing in the marketplace, the pipeline, we thought it would be around 300,000 carats produced on a yearly basis. That would be the maximum capacity which could have been produced in gem quality, entering the diamond pipeline, the jewelry pipeline. Over the years, obviously, this has grown. We believe that it is now anywhere between 2.5 million carats and 4.4 million carats of maximum capacity. And I stress maximum capacity because this is taking into account very good conditions, no breakage, no downturns, and so on and so on. So I'd like to stress it's really maximum capacity. We don't think that there is anywhere near 4.4 million carats of synthetics being produced and going into the pipeline for the moment. It's probably much lower than that, but the capacity is there to produce anywhere between 2.5 and 4.4 million carats.
Where are the majority of them being produced?
There's quite a few countries where synthetics are getting produced for the moment. There is China, which focuses mostly on smaller HPHD type of synthetic diamonds. There's an emerging growth we see in India for the moment. There's quite a few people investing in reactors and production in India. There's obviously Singapore, where there's production. There's production in America, even though we think it is relatively stable over there. So we believe the biggest growth is definitely in India and in China.
Okay.
And Russia, obviously, not to be forgotten. We have an important player in Russia as well, who's producing a very high-quality HPHD diamonds in larger sizes. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much indeed for that update, Didier. I'd like to, if I may, just bring in Thierry Silber here as well, because again, emphasize that this is not going to be a question of natural versus lab grown, and it's really was talking about the various sort of marketplace moving forward. I wondered, Thierry, if you could then just now give us an overview of why you feel there is room for both lab grown and mined diamonds to exist in the jewelry market today.
I think that a lab grown is a different product. I don't think it's a substitute to the natural diamonds. I just think it's a new choice for younger consumers, and perhaps a very big and important alternative when you look into fancy colors. When you want to buy a fancy color diamond, whether it's a blue, pink, or yellow, they are really so expensive. And you have there, I think, a big percentage of consumers. They want to buy some colored diamonds, but they can't afford. So I think that here the lab-grown diamond is a very nice alternative for this kind of people.
Okay, thank you very much, Thierry. I'll come back to you soon on sort of further questions on that, and we're going to go on to detection and disclosure now. I just wonder if I bring in Jean-Marc. Jean-Marc, from the Diamond Producers Association point of view, natural producers, as it were, why is it so important to disclose laboratory-grown diamonds?
Well, I think we've been talking about the importance of the consumer being confident in the product that he's buying, but also having a choice. And you can't have a choice if you're not properly informed. So there are two big risks that we are facing. One is the issue of consumers being deceived and therefore losing confidence in the sector, in the product. And the second one is that of the consumer being confused. Which is very important for everyone, because sometimes you can be so confused that eventually you just stay away from it altogether. So coming up with very clear terminologies, very clear nomenclatures, which are both precise, truthful, and consistent is critical, I think, to the future of the sector.
Okay.
If I may just give you a little framework, the way I think about terminology, I think there are really 3 levels of guidance. The first level of guidance is regulation. You know, what does the law say? And the law doesn't say anything anywhere in the world apart from France, where effectively it is, and Russia maybe. So in France, I'm not sure about Russia, but anyway, in France you have to call a synthetic diamond, a diamant synthèse, and a diamond is a diamond by definition. In all the other countries, maybe Russia is an exception, you don't have anything in regulation. The second level of nomenclature is standards and guidance. So here we're talking about FTC, typically in the US, or the NGTC national standards in China. I mean, these are kind of national guidance, national standards, which have a lower level of enforceability. And the third one is the industry standards. And here typically we've got the Blue Book. ISO standards comes as well together at the same level, I would say, probably as the FTC. So I think we've got to work at all levels to ensure that there is clarity as to what the terminologies that are allowed or recommended are, and really encourage the trade to enforce those.
Great, thanks very much indeed, Jean-Marc. Peter, do you think the industry is doing enough to promote the idea of proper disclosure and detection?
Well, I would say that the industry is starting to do enough. I think Jean-Marc made a couple of interesting points on what the diamond producers are doing now together. And I'm pleased to see that a lot of initiatives that are being brought up nowadays are supported throughout the world with different other international organizations while supporting this effort. And actually a good example of what was already done in terms of trying to bring a common understanding on how we call things and do not call things is a one-pager called the Diamond Terminology Guideline that was actually supported by 9 major industry organizations. And it's a step forward that shows, I think, all of us that if we work together, we can get very tangible results.
Good. Thank you. Also going on to now sort of testing and screening, there's been a lot of discussion on that. I mean, it's only recently we acquired the expertise, the technology, if you like, to test melee and you know, the smaller goods, which were always of enormous concern. What kind of technology is out there now to test and screen these sizes? Tom, perhaps?
Well, I think there are a number of instruments that have been developed in recent months in particular. And as I mentioned earlier, those devices are exploiting either growth structure differences or the impurities or defects in synthetic, and or looking for features that are only present in natural diamond. I think the challenge at this point with some of the devices, they're not all created equal. And I think there are challenges in the industry which devices actually are robust and are able to recognize and identify or refer all synthetic diamonds. I believe DPA is leading a project that is testing the instruments, and will report on their capabilities. But Jean-Marc, you might want to comment further on that.
You want me to do that now?
Yep. Jean-Marc, did you have something to?
Yeah, but I might just follow up, because on what Tom just said, he mentioned the project that is a long and complicated project, which is precisely aimed at providing transparency to the whole trade on the capabilities and functionalities of all the equipment that's available for purchase out there. Because the claim that you make to the consumer is only as good as the machinery that you've used to establish it. And so you can, in all good faith, pretend that your product is natural, when in fact you've been fooled by a piece of equipment that's not reliable, or you've not been using it the right way. So it's really, really important, because detection has to be spread across the whole supply chain over the next few years, to start by clarifying what instrument does what. And we've partnered with a company called Unite Underwriters Laboratories, who are developing standards and protocols, and almost done with that, to test, to have the ability to test about 35 of the available equipment out there, coming from 20 different manufacturers, according to common methodologies, using a common sample of about 5,000 carats, including about 20% of synthetic diamonds, which have been busy sourcing, calling the International Grown Diamond Association, trying to get them to refer me to their members to buy diamonds, which I found an interesting experience. But it's very important, and the reason why we're doing it within the Writers Laboratory is because we need objective, robust methodology supporting everything that we do, especially since we're going to make these information public. Now, it's going to be the choice of the manufacturer if they want their information to be made public. But I'd strongly argue that if you want to have commercial success with your piece of equipment, you'd better submit it to our program, and you'd better have the results published. So we are aiming to have the report published, both online and offline, by November, December this year.
That's great. So what you're referring to there is, institutionalizing a process where you can actually test the effectiveness of the machinery out there. And I think there has been, because we talk about, the stones this and the stones that, but the machinery itself hasn't really been talked about a great deal in terms of its effectiveness and which one you choose. Because even at the RJC, we have people phoning us and saying, can you tell us which machine we should be using? And of course, we're not in a position that would greatly compromise us to do that. Excuse me. So, it is an important part, and that's an interesting progression there. What do you think, perhaps Didier could come in on this one, your views on sample testing versus testing all stones?
Look, obviously there's the need for detection obviously is there. I think there's obviously a cost attached to that element, which is coming to our pipeline. It's something which wasn't there before. So therefore I think, that especially in the smaller size, the moment you hit, let's say the Malay and stars, to do full testing on those stones for the moment is challenging for multiple reasons. First of all, because there is detection equipment around which can process substantial volumes, but to process everything is obviously still very, very cumbersome. I think the labs are doing their utmost as well to provide for some capacity to make sure that people can process as much as possible. But obviously, the smaller the size, the bigger the cost starts to play in the total cost price of for your diamonds. So I think the technology is going to determine whether full testing is going to be possible. Obviously, the more, the better, because obviously you get more certainty. Having said that, in the meantime, obviously there are guidelines around on how to sample tests, especially the smaller sizes, with a great level of certainty in terms of what you will be getting out of it. But obviously, yes, so I think technology will play a role. I think the cost will play a role. And obviously, the moment these things are under control, I think more and more will be able to be tested.
Tom?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Didier's comments and give some experience that you guys had just over the past few months. We've tested a couple of million Meli, and I must say it seems like virtually every parcel there are some, very small numbers, but some synthetics. So I think, I believe the technology today, certainly De Beers and GIA and perhaps others, have developed a robust technology, and I believe that should be our goal, is to be able to process all of the stones, because ultimately, I think as Jean-Marc said, you know, if even what may seem like a small diamond or not so important to us is important to the consumer. And I really believe that should be our objective, to make sure that the consumer is confident and knows what they're purchasing.
Can you see the cost coming down, Tom?
The cost of testing?
Yeah. Significantly, and in what space of time do you think?
Well, I mean, I think today it is, I would actually look at it a little differently. I think it is low enough that a consumer will pay for. And there are a few fairly large organizations that that GIA happens to be working with now that sell retail that, and I've talked to them. They said that their customer is willing to, the amount of additional cost to the finished piece of jewelry is minimal, and their customers have no problem absorbing that. So I think some of the resistance to the cost is really within the industry, but I think the value proposition to the consumer, at least in some of the instances that GIA has had with its retail clients, they are willing to absorb it. It is really quite low cost today.
Jean-Marc.
Just a word on that. I think your cost is just one part of the equation. It's easy to hide behind cost. The big issue, because I agree with you, if you engineer the value chain, probably the consumer eventually is ready to pay for something that he or she is confident is a natural product. One of the main issues is availability of equipment, dissemination and speed of dissemination, and cost is part of that problem, sure. But also, what's the business model that allows a business to recover that cost, or maybe to access that capability at lower cost? I mean, we're talking with Anup Bai about, and with the German Jewellery Council last week, about the possibility of establishing detection centers in India, for example, where local players can have access to low cost, well-operated detection centers, operating at cost, with tested processes and equipment. Now, what it does take? It takes probably $250,000 per detection center in capital span. Takes training, takes location. Well, German Jewellery Council have got a location. Brinks have got locations as well. The main thing that's missing is the drive, the leadership, to actually take it in our own hands and go and do it. And I think that's the main thing that we all need to think about. Is cost is of these things not really the main problem. The main problem is who's going to do it, who's going to maybe put the money up front, who's going to do the training, who's going to find the locations, who's actually going to do the work. Then there is another aspect, which is once, assuming you've got your piece of equipment, is how do you use it? And together with making the performance of this equipment and the capabilities transparent to everyone, we're going to have to think as an industry how we educate people to use them, to find the right one that meets their requirement, use it in the proper way, batch testing against full testing. I mean, these are pretty technical stuff that the average business is just not at all ready to tackle without specialized advice. So the key question, I think, is who's going to do it? Who takes the baton and who goes and do it? And it's often not just one person, it's a group of people. So where's the leadership going to come from, and who's going to do it is a key question. More than cost, I think.
Yeah, I think, again, comes back to institutions, which is, I think, a current theme in this, the leadership part of this, and leading the way in terms of a developing process, best practice, all of this as well. Thierry, you...
Yes, I think cost is very important, because I think if you today check the diamond industry, I think that the biggest percentage of traders are relying too much on the supplier. And this is the problem. If you have affordable cost and you give the possibility to retailers, small and medium-sized companies, to buy this kind of device, so everybody needs to have auto-discipline and act consequently to check themselves, not to rely on the supplier. I think this is a major problem today, that a lot of people are relying on the supplier.
Okay, so you think that the responsibility goes further downstream than just
yes,
the suppliers?
I think you need to constantly check.
And how would you see that happening, Thierry?
That's what I just said. I think that the cost has to go down. I think that it's a discussion I had with Didier, that I think a device that would cost like about $4,000 to $5,000, that would be good enough to give proper information, because I agree today the devices are not really of best quality. They need to be improved. But once you get such a device and you get also that price level, I think lots of issues would be solved. Okay.
Thanks, Thierry. I just want to, talking again about sort of best practice and processes here as we were on that, before we move on, I just wanted to cover on, what do we think should be the best business practice for what we do with referrals from a screening process? Because there's been a lot of talk about that recently. Perhaps, Tom, you could.
Well, from the standpoint of referrals, it's GIA's practice today. We don't return any referrals. We test them all. Mm-hmm. So it's all built in now to at no additional cost to the testing. So what we return, what's submitted to us, everything goes back with a conclusive answer. But in general, that question, I mean, it's kind of an interesting thing, actually, in a way. I've thought about it, that one could say that, you know, someone will accumulate a lot of those referrals, and it's quite likely a high percentage of those will be, you know, pure natural diamonds, of the purest type 2 natural diamond. You know, it's occurred to me that someone might even leverage that, so it's going to cost them additional money with some organizations to have those tested and conclusively identified, but it actually could be almost a niche product. And of course, in that process, the synthetics will be removed. But the natural population that have been referred and conclusively identified, perhaps actually would be a boutique niche item of type 2 Melly-sized diamonds.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to add to that at all on best practice for referrals? Okay. Okay, just one step back again then, talking about institutions in the industry. And again, I think we've all seen the importance of that. You're really only going to get anywhere if you're going to be organized. We learned that very much with Conflict Diamonds. That gave birth to the World Diamond Council. It would never have happened if it hadn't been for Conflict Diamonds. Likewise, we're now seeing something which some perceive as being a crisis, some perceive as being a challenge, but nevertheless, it's a disruptor. It's you know, the landscape is changing, and how do we deal with it? And I would contend that institutions play a big role in that. So I just ask Thierry, if I may, what associations, first of all, exist in the lab-grown sector, and do you think they're representative, and do you think they're effective?
There is only one association for the moment. Most of the biggest producers are members of the association. I think probably they don't do enough. And I think the reason is that I believe we need to work together. And for the moment, it's not really happening. There is a kind of maybe misconfidence or something like that between both. And I think we should try to overbridge the gap and sit together for the best interest of the industry. Because, to be honest, be realistic. Lab-grown is not the competition of natural diamonds. It's the other industries inside the luxury segment. This is the competition. The fashion, the bags, cars, dining, traveling, lifestyle, etc. Today, a consumer, a younger consumer, would rather spend 1,000 euro to a smartphone than to a piece of jewelry. Mm-hmm. So I think together you know, it's the product diamond in general here, which is very important. And together we need to make sure that we don't lose market share. The percentage of market share inside that luxury segment is already extremely small. I tried to do some research on the internet. I couldn't find really a percentage, but I spoke to some people. Some say 1%. Edan Golan say, no, that's too low. He's thinking a little bit more, but it's still very, very minor. So I think together we need to make sure that we not only keep the percentage of market share, but we need to increase the percentage of market share. And therefore we need to work very closely together and especially respect each other.
So we're not fighting over portions of the cake. You're saying we need to grow the cake bigger, because we face, and if we're grouping them together, because we are sitting here together now, greater threats from the outside, from luxury accessories, watches, and whatever.
It's what I believe, yes.
Okay, that's interesting. Tom, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I think Thierry makes an excellent point, and certainly, just as an outside observer and look at the, for lack of a better expression, kind of the stone throwing that goes between the natural and synthetic producers. And I think ultimately can harm both products, where a consumer just gets kind of turned off or confused. I think Jean-Marc mentioned it earlier. And I believe that the best approach is to talk about the merits of each product. So the natural diamond, forming billions of years ago, over millions of years for that formation. And then from a synthetic side, there is the really special technology that's been created to grow synthetics, and as Thierry also mentioned earlier, to bring to the market new products or opportunities of whether it's a blue diamond or pink diamond that would be virtually unachievable for somebody to buy a natural product today. So I think he makes an excellent point, and that kind of education and focusing on the merits of both, I think will go a long way. And as Jean-Marc pointed out, with always clear distinction between the two products.
Okay, so it's about, Jean-Marc?
Yeah, no, happy to talk about that. So, I mean, I'd just like to react to it, because that's an important subject. First, to the question of we are one industry, no. We're not one industry and we're not one product. That's the premises that, rightly or wrongly, we at the Diamond Producers Association start from. That a diamond is a billion-year-old wonder of nature, and it caters to a certain market and it has a certain proposition. And we do not believe that we're in the same category as one category with the synthetic diamond producers fighting against the rest of the world. It's not a representation that we adhere to at all. We think they are products that have their merits and that have their proposition, and that they should be approaching the consumer with that value proposition and on their own merits. But I do not believe that they should have a common approach to marketing diamonds as a category. I don't think that, for me, it doesn't really make sense. If I can just, sorry.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say I'm not altogether sure that's what I was inferring from what Thierry was saying. I don't think he was saying that we. I don't think he was saying we. Sort of lab-grown and natural are fighting against the world as well. Basically, what Thierry was saying is a growing environmental sort of the competition.
So my misunderstanding then. Sorry. I think on the question of marketing every product on its own merit, I think I agree with you entirely, and I think it is regrettable that this whole thing has started from the wrong angle. And it has started from the wrong angle precisely, I think, because there was no institution at the time, and because probably the International Grown Diamond Association doesn't have enough clout within that industry that is very new, with lots of entrepreneurs who are trying to develop the business with huge pressure to generate cash quickly, frankly, on a product that's unknown, a completely new consumer proposition. And the temptation to go for shortcuts and think, I'm going to be developing my business by denigrating that other category that is huge, and I'm just going to take a little bit of it to grow my sales, even though I know it might not be the end game. It's very tempting. And I think we've just gone into that cycle that's led to the kind of stone throwing that you're talking about. And I agree, it's not helping. The question of terminology, if I may say, I think is a very important one. It's very symptomatic to this phenomenon. If you take a major synthetic diamond distributor in the US, you take their web page. I won't name them, but I took that web page to the FTC, to be honest, because I wanted to show them. Synthetic diamonds are described in 7 different ways, using 7 different terms in one page. I mean, if this is not an attempt to confuse and conceal, I don't know what that is. So I'm not saying every synthetic diamond producer is trying to conceal the nature of his product, and I'm not saying that, you know, they're all trying to confuse consumers, but I think it's very fragmented, there are lots of voices, and there is a need to, I think, agree to some discipline, which is what we're trying to do with the terminology guideline, to say there are 3 terms to be accepted: synthetic diamonds, laboratory-created diamonds, laboratory-grown diamonds. Let's try to stick to that and do away with above-ground diamonds. By the way, alluvial diamonds are above-ground diamonds as well, or cultivated diamonds, or anything to avoid talking about the merits of the product, which is what Tom was saying. So I think, is this something that can be solved by sitting around a table and say, you know, we're grown-ups, let's just, maybe, I'd love for the IGDA to be a strong organization with a lot of clout in the sector and be able to sit with them in good faith and talk about these things.
Yeah, well, I mean, certainly the IGDA's its presence is a good step forward, whatever it is. I mean, I'd like Thierry in a minute just to describe to us what it does. But again, not putting words in your mouth, Thierry, but I think what you were implying about the cake was the jewellery industry you were talking about, not necessarily what you perceived. Yeah. And there are many people who say that lab-grown diamonds are a very legitimate part of the jewellery industry. So we just wanted to clear that up at that time as well. You know, when I was at De Beers, I was part of the team that put together that nomenclature that started off as a European directive, but ended up as the ISO as well. And again, in the beginning of that, we brought in the lab-grown sector, some leading producers at that time, to ensure that we did have that cooperation. So again, Jean-Marc, when you're saying, you know, you are coming across as a little skeptical about, you know, can that happen? Our experience, I think, in the first place there, if I can just sort of talk firsthand myself, is that, yes, they were. We invited them, making sure that, you know, we told them this is our intent. We want to have a common disclosure process and nomenclature for what we call lab-grown and what we call natural. And as I say, the lab-grown sector did come with us in that first place, but then sort of like fell away, if you like, largely because there was no institution really to sort of keep them there. And it was on the vagaries of individuals and how they felt, and if they felt put out, and you know, did they have the pace to keep up? So I think, again, what we're seeing there is the common failure of lack of institutions that have really got us into the position, whether we're throwing stones or whether we're just willfully misunderstanding the arguments on this side or that side for where we go forward. But again, Thierry, just briefly, I wonder if you could just tell us, what does the IGDA do? What is its mission, its vision, and who runs it?
But the founders are, I think, the big producers. They took the initiative. The major ones are the Russian producer and 2A Technologies. These are the 2 biggest ones. They started the initiative. The purpose was to promote laboratory-grown diamonds to consumers. This is the main objective, to explain consumer what it is, and yes, a kind of marketing tool.
Okay, so it's a marketing institution or organization
Yes.
rather than one that's sort of involved in a panoply of other issues as well, including regulatory issues and
For
so
the
on.
moment it is, I think. This is, I believe, what they do. But I think this is also because the lack of communication between, I would say, the two industries. I think if we would sit together, I fully agree with you. Jean-Marc, I have no objection, you know. I'm using all the time the term laboratory grown diamond. I'm advising to all our customers to use the same terminology because I think if the three major international diamond laboratories choose to use that terminology on the diamond certificate, I think this is the one we need to follow.
Okay.
This is for me a very simple issue.
Okay, so the IGDA is essentially, as you're saying, Thierry, a marketing device, a marketing vehicle for that sector for the time being.
Yes.
It has the potential to grow into more. Whether it has the political will within that or outside that to turn it into that, we'll have to see. But I think we're all agreeing that what we need from that side is more organization, is more institutional structures to be able to, and you talk about the two sides, whichever way we want to describe that, the two sides have got to be able to talk, and the best way of doing that is institution to institution. Because also it's very important to look at wider institutions, not just in the industry. And I know that Peter, for example, you've spoken in the past about the need to look at customs codes.
Well, yeah, that's actually, I think, the point we're still missing in our discussion is exactly what the governments can do in terms of helping the industry to set rules in which we need to exist and rules which we need to observe in order not to mix one product with another. Again, bringing in more not only detection but differentiation of the product. And the customs codes is one of the things that are not being looked at well enough. Because if we look at what we have now, again, taking into account that the laboratory-grown diamonds are there for some time already on the market, on the level of the customs regulation, we only have two countries that introduced separate customs codes for synthetics. It's China. They did quite a very good job. I can say they're number one in the world. They introduced 3 different codes, including for rough and polished synthetic diamonds. And India that introduced only for rough synthetics, not for polished, for some reasoning. And that's it for the time being. We also discussed today with the KP chair that the Kimberley process tries to move this thing forward in the World Customs Organization in terms of introducing a universal 6-digit code. But until this comes to life, and it takes some time in a big structure like a World Customs Organization to come to this point, it's very important that governments, and primarily governments that consume diamonds, not produce or polish them like China or India, for example, or Russia, like a big producer, but those who import and consume the end product really look into the matter of introducing 2 separate customs codes for synthetic diamonds and for diamonds, as we say according to the terminology guideline. This is a very important piece of work which we at Alrosa try to concentrate on and also talk about this within the industry organizations which we are a member of.
Okay, because I know it's very important as well, because I know there are reports, strangely enough, I mean, we talk about in a lab grown and having to have nomenclature and disclosure, etc. But I do understand, and I think Peter and we've discussed this, that there are reports that natural goods, natural diamonds, have been traded as lab grown in order to avoid Kimberley process certification. So again, this is something which institutions need to approach on that. So
I think it's an example that shows that there is a need for this for the both products.
Yeah.
because otherwise you can have fraud that goes both ways. Even in terms of trying to avoid the certification schemes and the regulatory institutions which are already there.
Yeah.
So it's an important part.
I want to add, Peter, that in Belgium we have also different codes for natural.
Not customs codes.
I don't know. I think customs codes. When you import, you have to declare on a different level.
Yeah, we've got the EU
it's a
here.
different thing.
Different?
Almost.
Because the codes are different. In the diamond office, they use a different code.
Hilda, were you able to cast any light on that for us? You can come up here if you like. Just to clarify this.
Yeah. Interesting.
Customs is in the European Union is a matter for the European Union, so we cannot have in Belgium a different code than we can have in the rest of the European Union.
Sorry, Hilda, just 1 second. We're just trying to get some sound for you. Could we have this microphone on, please?
Just get closer.
Yeah? Do you want to test that, Hilda? That's better.
It
Thank you.
works. Thank you. No, I just wanted to say that customs matters in the European Union are a union matter. So I cannot exclude that Belgium may have an additional type of code, but the customs code as such needs to be settled at the level of the European Union as a whole, and this is a process on which we as European Union are working, but we are not fully there yet. Could I please take the opportunity to add just 2 words on your discussion on the machinery for testing synthetics? It's absolutely not my field. I'm an official, but I just come back from India, where we saw in Mumbai how the local, well, I shouldn't call it local, it's a big diamond wars, and also the Ministry of Economics provide a apparently rather affordable, simple type of machine with which you can do the first testing between synthetics and non-synthetics. And I just wanted to share our experience that they call it, this machine, the bancomat. They have it standing in a public place, and any person buying diamonds, any small trader or any small polisher can go with his diamonds, pay the equivalent of $1.50 and test up to 10 carats. It goes very fast. It's apparently the first screening. So what you were discussing about affordable machines that could be spread rather quickly seems to be something that in India is being worked on and being developed. I just wanted to share with you this experience that I have seen, adding that I am by no means a specialist and I am unable to tell the difference between a machine that really works and that doesn't. They have involved scientists from their nuclear research scientists. As you know, India does nuclear research. And so they consider that this is extremely important for them to invest in this, to have affordable, easy to use machinery. Thank you.
Thanks, Hilda. Well, as luck would have it, we've got Anoop Mehta here. So when it comes to the Q&A session, I'm sure we'll get a mic to Anoop and we can elaborate on that technological breakthrough. Thank you, Hilda. But I'd just like to stay on again, because I think the key, in my personal view, is institutions, is getting organized, is being able to talk. And come to you, Didier. Again, the research that you've done over the past few years, what do you think are the prospects of the lab-grown sector being able to bring itself together, to be able to organize, not just like the IGDA does in terms of promoting its product, but also one that is willing to and able to engage at, within its own sector itself, with other sectors, including the natural sector, with governments, in order to bring a lot more sort of transparency and disclosure to the trade?
Well, I think synthetic diamonds obviously is relatively new. I mean, not for industrial purposes, but for gem sets. So therefore, I think it is growing. Therefore, I think they've gone through the same pains in a sense as our industry, the natural diamonds, have gone through as well. And I tend to agree. I mean, IGDA for the moment has a marketing role. I think there's much more to be done. I think at the end of the day, we're talking about transparency, right? I mean, I think that is the key word here. We're trying to sell to the consumer a product and basically call it what it is. So therefore, I think IGDA has a role to play, or someone else, maybe a newer organization, trying to explain to its members, what the benefits are of selling a transparent product, and that eventually, the consumer will dictate, whether they would want to buy synthetic diamonds, natural diamonds, colored stones, maybe something else. I think, that will leave to the consumer. At the end of the day, the consumer decides what they want to have. But what they deserve to have is a transparent product, knowing what they're buying. And so therefore, yes, I think there is a requirement and a need for more institutions also within the laboratory-grown industry to help their members, in trying to understand why this is important.
Yeah.
So I think eventually, hopefully, we will see growth and more structure in laboratory-grown as well. Yeah.
How, just briefly, and I know it's a million-dollar question, but how do you think progress can be made in terms of addressing the risk? And there are common risks as well. I mean, Tom brought it up, and I take I'm absolutely with you, Jean-Marc, on your point that they are different products, different sectors, etc. They're not the same, but there are shared risks nevertheless. And I think Tom raised a very good one there, and in terms of the consumer gets confused. And again, point you made, Jean-Marc, the consumer gets confused and said, "Well, I can't decide, so I'm going to go and buy something else now," and that is one. So, Didier, how do you see being able to address those common risks that they do have, notwithstanding that they are different products?
Well, I think obviously, I agree with you, there is a risk. I mean, I think if we look at our studies, clearly the way laboratory grown has been sold so far is very sketchy. Mm-hmm. It's also, in my opinion, what we've seen is that the value proposition which has been offered to the consumer tends to vary from one retailer to the other. We've seen people trying to promote it as being more environmentally friendly. We've seen people saying, forget whether it's environmentally friendly, we just see it as a cheaper product and we just offer it as a cheaper alternative or substitute to diamonds. We've seen people trying to price it higher than diamonds. We've seen people going pricing it much lower. So you can clearly sense, there's still a lot of research being done, even at retail level and done by the consumer, trying to position,
find a market,
what is the exact market for synthetic diamonds? Is it just a cheaper alternative? Is it something else? And I guess time will tell how the consumer values synthetic diamonds and how eventually retailers might want to position that product in their stores.
Great, thank you very much indeed. On those subjects that we've covered, then, anyone, before I throw it on to our audience for any questions and answers, any other points that you'd like to make on those topics that we've just covered? Anybody? No? Good. Okay, well then, right now I'd like to open it up to the audience. I think probably, sorry Harriet, I was just going to say, because they were so interesting and I wanted to sort of do that and also get a reaction from our panelists also on that. Anoop, I wonder if you could elaborate on what Hilda was saying about the technology. We have a microphone just here.
So we developed a machine which does the first screening, and it can just, you put it on the tray or into blocks and can identify the diamonds. And we've set up 2 machines in a location inside Bharat Diamond Boost, where a person can walk in and, like she said, for 100 rupees, use that machine for 15 minutes and do it himself and walk out of the door and just go back and see whether he wants to refer for further testing. And this has helped create a lot of awareness. And in India, we are very confident that we know that the technology is available with most of the big players. It's unfortunate that it's not being put out there free. It's like Apple and Amazon. You have an open platform and you have somebody wants to look after his IP. If that is made available to the industry, India is confident to produce machines at very, very cheap prices and give them away to the rest of the world. Because at the end, it's our bread and butter, and we've got, you know, a million polishers out there who need to keep growing. And if we need to sustain that, we need to have these machines not only in the cutting and polishing centers, but also at the jewelers who are selling them.
Okay, Anoop, thank you very much indeed. Anyone like to comment on that? I mean, Tom, have you come across this technology? What's your view?
I'm not aware of the exact method that that they're using.
Okay.
I have some idea listening to a description, but I don't know enough about it to comment.
Because I think the concept is exactly what we need, where people have that kind of access, and we were talking about costs and, and access as well earlier on.
I mean, some years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, GIA, with a leased for free to all of the bourses, it was a similar, although it was 1 stone at a time, but it was free for everybody. Someone could go in and just test on their own. So if they had 20 or 30 stones, it was about 2 seconds per stone. But I think in 15 or 17 of the bourses around the world, these were $20,000 or $25,000 instruments, which we essentially gave to the bourses for leased for free. So that concept is a good one certainly we support and have been part of in the past.
Okay. John,
I think it's a fundamental question. Do the labs, and I say the labs in a very generic manner, Tom, is a synthetic detection a commercial opportunity on its own to, you know, sell a lot of equipment? Because we know that there'll be, you know, synthetic detection equipment everywhere, just like there are scales everywhere in diamond operations today. And should be approached as a commercial opportunity, or should it be approached as a risk management tool? And the bigger commercial opportunity is to mitigate very quickly the risk of not having sufficient detection across the pipeline. So I think there is real soul searching to be made here around, what's the commercial opportunity? Is it the synthetic detection equipment, or is it the opportunity of managing the risk in the pipeline? Maybe a bit of both.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say from GIA's perspective, we're not really interested in making money on this process. And certainly we've invested a lot on the work we've done, and we'll continue to do it if you go back even over a 40-year period. But at the same time, I'm not sure we can absorb the whole cost of supporting the entire industry to do this.
Not easy.
Good. Any other comments? I saw you nodding away there, did you?
No, look, I think there's the willingness pretty much from the entire pipeline to address the issue. I think that's been acknowledged by everyone now. I think if you look at how the technology has evolved over the last 4 years, I mean, detection devices have grown. There's many detection devices. Where detection devices could only do stone by stone, now we see batch processing being possible, and the costs have come down. So I think there's a big evolution taking place, and I think there's willingness, and I think those two ingredients, hopefully, together, you know, will help us overcome this detection problem. But I do agree with you. I mean, I think we've come down again to there is, for the moment, a cost aspect linked to checking and detection. I think there's definitely willingness with quite a few leaders in the midstream, diamond producers and manufacturers to check as much as is possible, and where needed, everything. So yes, and I can only applaud, you know, what the Barra Diamond Bourse has done in offering these technologies, which is obviously helping, you know, the probably smaller players and medium-sized players within Barra Diamond Bourse to do detection. And I think it's also again about, you know, creating awareness that there is detection available, because for the moment, you know, all the big centers are very much aware of detection techniques, what machines are around and everything. But obviously this needs to now start to spread in various centers, various, you know, niches of the pipeline. They need to start being aware of it.
Yeah.
And, but hopefully, you know, with the technology being, moving forward very rapidly, I hope we'll get there.
Tom.
Andy, I just wanted to add kind of another point about the detection, the technology. Pardon me. The synthetic producers and some of those who are not producers but have malintent, the product is not static. So there continue to be evolutions in the product that in some cases are done specifically to bypass the testing or to create features in the diamond that will not be detected by some instruments. So it's really a dynamic and robust process that requires also ongoing research to make sure that as these changes occur, either by the producers or those who are not producing but want to do things to synthetic diamonds to make them more difficult to detect, I can tell you that dynamic is going on and will continue to go on.
So can I ask
I'm
a
aware.
question?
Sorry, just I'm aware that I will come to Harriet to you in a minute. Just want to sort of because it does lead to an interesting point. I know one that you've made, Jean-Marc, is asking first of all cooperation and asking in terms of material to be able to test and test machines and technology, but also I think you've asked the very pointed question of why are they doing this? Is it because they want to be less detectable? And something I wonder, maybe after Jean-Marc said, Thierry, you could perhaps just have a couple of words on. Is there that intent that they are purposely using technology to fly under the radar?
It's a really, really important question because that goes to the heart of our ability to work together or not. Is the intent honorable or not? Because you don't work with criminals if the intent is to fraud. So is there, I was going to ask Tom or whoever, is there a way that as part of the production process, you could include a marker in the production of the diamond that would make it more easily detectable, where synthetic diamond producers in good faith could actually include that marker in their production as a way to facilitate detection, which I think would be the ultimate evidence of the willingness to support the differentiation of the product at consumer level.
It's a good question, and I'll use some years ago a synthetic ruby producer did that very thing, put a tracer in their growth process to be able to identify them. I think it's a bit more complicated with diamond, but there could be methods of putting a physical mark that was not visible but could be with some reader perhaps seen. But again, I want to be kind of clear. I think for the most part, at least the synthetic diamond producers that GIS engaged with, collaborated with, published on their work, most of them are legitimate. They inscribe on the diamond, on the synthetics that they're laboratory grown or something. So I don't think, probably most of this is happening outside of the synthetic producers. Although the synthetic producers will, if they, as they continue to experiment, develop, grow larger stones, improve technology, naturally things will change. Perhaps not necessarily some with the intention to override or compromise testing. It just may complicate testing through the evolution of the technology improvement. So I think there's two things going on. So this is why I think organizations like GA, like De Beers, like others, will continue to have to invest significantly in this methodology for testing, and continue to update the instrumentation.
Yeah, Tom, just to add one more observation, I think I would agree with you that it will continue to be very important to do these testings, because like any other technology, and we didn't talk about this yet, the lab-grown diamonds will become cheaper and cheaper. like any technology, they start with high price. We see it already on the market. Yeah, they used to start with discounts of what, 10 to 20%, then it went down to 30, 40%. Now it's already about 50 and going down to 60. So like any technology, when it develops, it becomes cheaper. And of course, the temptation to try to pose it for a natural thing will grow with this technology also being developed. And detection, well, yeah, will have to be there.
Yeah, Peter, I think it's interesting you said. I was in Shanghai 2 weeks ago visiting 2 brand new producers, and they both acknowledged that the price is going down. I mean, I was surprised that they would even acknowledge that, but they just flat out said that, you know, the prices of their product is going down.
Just wanted to wrap up on that last one with Thierry, if you had any comments on that. And I know that absolutely, because of the person you are, we've spoken to you many times, type of people, if they had intent to deceive on this, you would run a mile from them. But does it worry you that there might be these elements in that sector at the moment, and there are no institutions or whatever to sort of, you know, squeeze them out or marginalize them?
Actually, I fully agree with what Tom said. I think the lab-grown producers will continue to do research, how to improve to a better quality of product, but I'm 100% sure that they will never do that with the purpose of deceiving the people.
Okay. We'll leave it at that. Thank you very much indeed. Raj will get to you in a sec, but I did promise Harriet a question here. Sorry to have kept you, Harriet.
No problem. It's interesting. Yeah, my name's Harriet Kelsall. I run a very small business, which we design and make and retail products. And of course, as we all know, the majority of the industry is made up of very small businesses. And the other day, something happened which happens very frequently in our business and in our kind of business, which is that somebody came along with a ring that was their grandmother's ring that they wanted to rework and make into a new engagement ring. And they did this because of the sentimental attachment to their grandmother. And they weren't big stones. You know, we're on the high street. We're dealing with people who don't have very big budgets. So these stones were about 20 to 30 points each. There were 3 of them. And of course, we looked at the ring and realized very quickly they were cubic zircons and not diamonds at all. And so we had the slightly awkward conversation that we have with these people to explain that maybe the grandfather had bought a cubic zircon ring for his beloved grandmother who never knew this. Now, when we're talking about everything we're talking about here, we're talking about lots of big producers, we're talking about machines where you can screen these diamonds, but the reality is what's going to happen in a couple of generations' time. Now, I'm a great supporter of lab-created diamonds. I've used them for a few of our own designs because we have a base in Cambridge where the market's slightly different, Dita, from the ones you mentioned. We have what we like to call geek chic, where scientists enjoy the science of having conquered the technology of making a diamond. But I'm putting these rings on my customers' fingers, doing everything I can as a retailer, designer, manufacturer to make sure that there won't be future confusion. I'm giving them a certificate saying this is a synthetic diamond. I still don't think it's enough because, especially with prices going down, in a couple of generations' time, they're probably going to have lost that certificate and maybe the story of the geek chic reason that person made that ring. And actually, is their grandchild going to know that that's a diamond? So I know we're talking about technology moving very quickly, but every single small business needs to know really quite soon how to detect these stones. We're not just talking about the big producers. So I suppose my point is, firstly, don't forget the small businesses, don't forget the retailers in this. We can't share machines, we're too far away from each other. And secondly, really agreeing with what Jean-Marc said, a physical tracer would be ideal. That's what we can do with the cubic zircons. It's very easy to do. So do you have any advice for how I can be as responsible as it's possible to be if I'm using a lab-created diamond to make sure that in a generation or two's time, there's not some confusion caused?
Very good one, like that one. Thanks, Harriet. Sorry, did you want to add to that, or should we just... You're going to help answer. Oh, okay. So our honorary member of the panel here is going to...
Harriet, that's a really great point that you raised. And there are so many different options out there. You can send it to a lab and get it lasered as a lab-grown diamond. And that stays with the stone since you're dealing with polished, right? So you do that before...
Very small stones.
You can do a mark on the small stones. But the point is there is a lot, actually, of affordable machines out there. So it's not that hard to find. There's not that many providers, but there is confusion within the market on which machine is right for me, right? Depending on the sizes, the colors, whether I'm dealing with single stones or stones set into jewellery. And so in order to provide that clarity to trade, small players, medium players, and large players, DPA is working on creating this lab that will give you a list of machines, what they work best for, etc., so you can make the right decision. But there is many affordable equipment out there, including from very known, reputable labs at that price point that was mentioned before. So it's not hard.
Thanks, Ferial. Anyone on the panel like to follow that up? Advice for Harriet?
Oh, thank you. Well done.
No.
Yeah.
Good.
I think, having the privilege of being the host, yeah, I can only say that by the end of the session we will make a small presentation of our device, our Rosa Diamond Inspector, and which is not only affordable, Harriet, but also portable. And this may be a good answer for small businesses because it also does detection already in set rings. And you will have an opportunity to look at this device also during the evening reception. Sorry, I'm the host.
No problem. Yes, we will, as Peter says, we'll be showing a short video at the end of this to get that. Now, there was a question from Raj.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to ask a question on the synthetic machines that equipments that are being made. They're made for polished diamonds. What about rough diamonds? Because as Peter said that with technology it improves, and as time goes by it becomes cheaper, I understand, but also the product improves also with time. And so far, okay, there is a difference in the look of the raw material, but it could be one day that the raw material also looks pretty much the same. Is there anything being done on that side of the business, which is actually at the root of the situation?
Anybody?
Yeah, Raj, again, I'm not familiar with all the devices, but I think the De Beers device should work with ROF. GIA's ID100 will work the same adequately, perfectly fine with ROF. So there are instruments out there that will do just to answer your question. Again, I'm not familiar with all of them, but I at least know those two.
That can be used for parcels, like -6 parcels of rough can be used for parcels.
The ones I'm referring to were one stone at a time, but there may be others. I'm just not familiar with all of them, Raj, but I assume you're looking to do groups at a time. Yeah.
Okay, Didier had a...
No, I'd like to point out to Raj that, in the smaller sizes it is already very difficult sometimes to distinguish natural rough from synthetic rough. And yes, I do agree with Tom that there are detection devices around which can actually identify synthetic diamonds at a rough stage. Maybe not through batch processing where it will fall into little trays, but where you can place the diamonds on a big tray and you could identify based on, obviously with trained people, know what you're looking at. So it does exist, yeah.
So as an example, again, using the two examples I talked about, you're probably talking about 1 to 2 seconds per stone and down to a size of 1 millimeter. So I think there's a solution, and again, there might be some automation too that offhand I'm just not familiar with.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. I would like to follow what Harriet was talking about and go a little bit into the future. And my question is to Terry, and obviously everybody else can answer as well. What do you foresee will happen in 5 or 6 years from now in terms of division between synthetics and diamonds? And I will give you just one example. Today in the Walmart, you have 1.2 carat melee in a golden ring of 14 carats, which is retailed for $6.99. So the stones are SI-free I to L color. And judging from what is going on today, the same ring of 14 karat gold with the FVS color of synthetics would cost exactly the same price. So what will be the future of this particular product, which today every single shop, especially in the United States and China, is full of this SI and low color products? Do you think they will disappear from the market, or do they will have to, because they will have to compete with clean and nice synthetics? What's your opinion on this?
I think it will be all about consumer choice. They will have to decide what they want. So, you know, both products will be in the shop, and they will choose themselves which one to go for.
Yeah, but the logic says that the lady has only $6.99 to spend on the ring, and she goes in the shop and she sees 2 rings, one clean and white, and another not exactly like this. What it will be the obvious choice, wouldn't it?
The choice to go to a natural diamond or to a laboratory grown diamond.
Perhaps.
I think just one thing I'd like to add on, I think an interesting dynamic too is certainly with the decline of argyle, there's less of that material in the market. So it might be that the synthetic actually replaces that product that exists today as it declines.
Absolutely. I agree. I think the lower quality natural diamond is now the problem. That, like you said, there is no reason why to buy a lower quality if you can buy for the same price a better diamond. But it's about alternative and choice.
But what the producers will do, and this is a question to Peter, with this huge amount of industrial diamonds that are polished today.
Well, they're there to be industrial, you know. I don't think that in smaller sizes natural diamonds will go away, because it will be in any way a matter of choice for the consumer. When you are being faced with what you're actually buying and not understanding what it is, it's one issue. When you have a choice whether you go for a natural product with actually a natural gold, or you go for a natural gold and you have something in there that is produced somewhere you don't know where, I'm not sure that it's quite an obvious answer that you will have.
It's a difficult thing, because it's clean and white against brownish.
Yeah, still, it's a choice. It's a choice.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very good question. A lot of the research that we have published is for a consumer, if you provide them with a diamond, so it's not a natural diamond, it's a diamond to follow nomenclature requirements, and a synthetic diamond or lab-grown diamond for the same price, they will go to the diamond. This brings us to the point that I think Jean-Marc was making, which I completely support. There are 2 different products, right? So why do you price them based on diamonds? We don't price bicycles based on cars, or you price them based on their production cost. We see production costs coming down. That's the price that you should be providing. But this consumer question, which is, you know, same price, this one looks better, that's wrong. That's actually the heart of the matter that we face. And today, it was a great conversation. We spoke about a couple of things. We spoke about disclosed synthetics, right, and their marketing campaigns, which is an issue. We spoke about undisclosed synthetics and all of the efforts that the industry is making to protect the product. And this is a risk for both synthetic diamond producers as well as diamond producers, because on the one hand, synthetic diamond becomes a fraudulent product, and on the other hand, consumer confidence is lost in diamonds. So what do we need to do together to address this issue? It is not a diamond problem. It is a common problem. It's a common risk. And we need to weed out those that are doing fraudulent things that will affect both different products.
Thanks, Fariel. I just want to sort of say that part of that conversation is fascinating, but not what we're here to discuss today. I just wanted to keep this on detection and disclosure, which thankfully, Fariel, you did the job for me at the end and brought it round to that again, asking that question, how can we go forward to address, there are clearly common risks here that we need to address together. And I think the theme that we had been developing in the discussion was one of institutions that need to happen. And there is a complete lack of them on the lab-grown sector side. There are no institutions. And let's remind ourselves again, before we get too smug on the natural side, it wasn't, the WDC isn't that old, the DPA isn't that old, a lot of the RJCs are not that old. I mean, these were all sort of developments that came from the diamond side, so we mustn't be too smug on that either. But it is actually good news as well, because it can be shown that it can happen fairly quickly. And things can move if there's a will, if there's a political will. Then that brings up the questions we were asking earlier on. Are there people out there intent on flying this product under the radar or not? Or is it just a genuine, legitimate innovation in the product? This is the thing we have to do. Any other questions in the audience?
There's one here. Yes, hello. My name is Rolly Klink from Meyerhof Klink. I'm the owner. And actually, this question was, which was just asked before, was one leading in the future. I would like to point out now an actual thing. And I do agree with all these gentlemen saying that there is a problem nowadays, and we have to differentiate the product. And actually, as being one of the big provider in Germany for diamonds, so eventually this is one of our tasks. There is no alternative for testing and certifying and doing things like that. Even so, I would also like to mention that even if you have a correct machine, which is 100% reliable, how do we prove that we're even using the machine? We are not only selling diamonds, and we are not only selling value for something, we're also selling trust by the end of the day. And I think that is a very important, major, substantial thing which you should point out at any time. So what we did nowadays, and this is also actually the reason why we joined this organization, the RUG, because we want really to make clear to the people that we are standing on the side of doing our job well, and we get feedback, and we will be with information all the time what's going on. But coming to the point, I have a direct question to Tom. Actually, we are sending all our diamonds, even we have a program for this, all certified and tested by labs. And I do agree with you 100%. If you put on the scale what you have to risk and to lose against the cost it is, there is no alternative. I think so. We have to testify all the diamonds. And my practical question is, it came to my knowledge that in Antwerp, GIA very soon is going to open up a branch, as I know. Is there also in the plan that they're going to do the CVD testing on a big scale in Antwerp? That's my direct question.
That is the plan. We will provide that testing in Antwerp later this year.
Great. Any other questions? Stefan.
Thank you. It's not a question, it's an observation. I think, and thank you for raising this point, because I was coming exactly to the same point. I think we shouldn't leave this meeting, which is live streamed, to make everybody understand that the processes are in place, that distributors of polish have very, very strict processes, that every single stone is checked and tested. It's our reputation that it's on the game. We have relations with retailers who test themselves. People have to understand that this industry is an ethical industry. Member of the RJC means something. We are people here who are doing a lot of work to make sure that the consumer is properly informed, that they have a proper choice, and that they can be assured by buying from reliable sources that the diamonds they buy are diamonds, that the synthetic they buy are synthetics. I think it should be said because the industry and most diamantiers and retailers here present are doing exactly that.
That's a very good point, Stefan. Thank you. And this is something we always said in the past about other issues that the industry has faced, is that it is the responsibility of everyone down the pipeline, from both types of producers, polishers, retailers, but not forget the consumer. The consumer also has to do proper research on this, and the best way of doing that is finding out those reputable retailers to go to in the first place. Who it is your friends. They exist. The vast majority are in that category. So I think it's a very good point you make there, Stefan, but it is the responsibility of the consumer also to make sure that they understand who are the best sources to do that. And we have an excellent part of that responsible supply chain here in the form of Thierry. And I thank him very much for coming here to be part of this discussion, because it took not a little courage to do so in something which is a very contentious and emotional issue within the industry at the moment. We're drawing to an end. I just wonder if there is anybody who has any other questions. Sorry, yes, please. No, we need a microphone for you, Jason. Oh, you're late. Okay. Okay, so we'll. Okay, well. It wasn't a lady, actually, but
here.
It was. Okay. Okay. Look.
I don't know who. Age before beauty. Thank you very much. Okay. I think that the conversation, and I want to thank you, RJC, Rosa, and all the panelists for this very interesting discussion. Let me go and read laboratory-grown diamonds, the importance of detection of disclosure. Disclosure is something that the industry has always requested. At least, I go back to what Sibjo has done in 2004 when our Sibjo representative in Germany, as you all remember, took a company of synthetic diamonds into court using the Blue Book, the Diamond Blue Book, and was found guilty because misleading the consumer. The key is the consumer at the end. But on the other side, there is nothing against, as you all have said, against synthetic diamonds, legitimate products, wonderful product. Natural diamond, we know each other what we are talking about. But it looks to me that there is one word missing, which is honesty of trading. We are, as Stefan said, an industry which is very reliable, based on trust, based on reputation. We are an industry that works tirelessly in order to better serve not only the industry members themselves, but mainly the consumer, because he is the one that at the end of the day make all of us happy or unhappy, it depends. We have had cases amongst our members, specifically I refer to one of a very important jewelry brand, who was delivering goods, part of it made somewhere else, not in-house, but with contractors, and was delivered in the United States, where in an important piece of jewelry, among many diamonds, one was found synthetic. So they asked us to open a case, we did, but still nobody disclosed who, where it's coming from. In other words, as I have said personally, on behalf of CIBJO many times, please give me the proof that somebody is mixing, and we will bring to the court. Because a piece of jewelry is made by several elements. We are talking, and we all have been at the OECD in Paris or send our representative. We always talk about responsible sourcing, responsibility, ethical standard, and so on. But you know, at the end of the day, we have to check. And overall, all the position, it looks to me defensive, because when we talk about the detection, why we need to detect? Detection is correct because we want to know. You know, Tom has spoken immensely about that. Now we are going to see this machine, but we need the detection because there is people who is behaving not, I would say, not in a ethical way. So in my opinion, all the industry, including, and we are pushing the synthetic diamond producer to join us in what we all can do to defend, but I would say more than defend, to take care of the consumer confidence, because this is the only way, taking care of the consumer confidence, to taking care of the industry reputation. So I would say that wonderful to do that. Let's see what is possible to do. So don't leave this discussion, you know, at the end of the day, just ended. Let's continue. I invite personally everyone who want to be part of it. And we are doing a lot of activity and every day in order to bring to our consumer the best possible product, legitimate, in every single process of the supply chain.
Thank you very much, Gaetano. That was actually, you know, it is the theme for this discussion, was that in whatever small way it possibly can, you know, we'd like to take the discussion beyond these four walls, and to really just clarify and define what it is we're looking at here. And I think one thing that we've looked at, I mean, what a first-class, world-class example CIBJO is as an institution, and this is what we're talking about, it's institutions. You know, there can be no sort of dialogue and cooperation addressing those risks that are shared in various sectors, unless you have institutions that can talk to each other. Because then you just have the individuals that you talk about. You have the rogue elements. You have the people that from any sector, not just in a lab-grown, but from the natural, from any sector, who is always going to take advantage of any situation where they are not properly scrutinized, there aren't proper frameworks and processes in place that can keep them accountable. And again, that's what I think, and I hope, you know, we're talking about taking further to the discussion that we have here. But thank you for your intervention, as always, Gaetano. Jason.
I'm Jason Rubin. First of all, thank you to the panel members for a very interesting dialogue. I have one comment and one question. Listening to you gentlemen speak, I've been drawing analogies coming from the perspective of a precious metals refiner. And there's a constant dialogue that's going on between different sources of precious metal. You have three major sources that are being discussed and the merits of each of them. One is precious metal coming from artisanal sources. One is precious metal derived from recycled precious metal, for which there is no traceable derivation. and then precious metals coming actually from freshly mined mineral. And I'm not going to be able to, I have my opinions as to what I would rather be refining and what we do refine, but I know that the laws of economics and supply and demand are going to have room for all three of them. And what I've been trying to promote within my company certainly and within the industry is the transparency that Jean-Marc spoke of and that Terry spoke of. And having the technical capability to provide the downstream consumer with exactly what they want. If they want recycled, well, I'm not going to charge them a premium for segregation and give them commingled material. I'm going to give them what they ask for and only what they ask for. And it goes back, regardless if you're selling diamonds or the metal that it's being set into, the consumer is our lifeline, and it's our fiduciary responsibility to provide that transparency and that traceability. So we have a lot of similarities in the challenges that we face. The second item was a question, and the question is, I can very easily understand the challenges that diamond mines face from a governance perspective, similar to any mining entity that is extracting mineral from the ground. Are there any particular governance challenges for the lab-grown stones that they are facing besides this potential consumer confusion?
Thank you, Jason. Anybody like to address that question Jason asked? Perhaps Thierry. I mean, in addition to this, what other issues does the lab-grown sector face? That's what you were asking, Jason, wasn't it? Yeah.
In principle, we don't have so many issues. We just need to have a permission to build the growing facilities. Occasionally, we even get some financing from countries, from special organization. And besides that, no, we don't have much. We don't have so many the issues that the mining companies have.
Okay, Tom. Oh, Jean-Marc, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it works, but I can't help but thinking that it's a lot easier and you've got a lot less constraints and you're a lot less scrutinized setting up a lab-grown diamond production facility than you are setting up a mine in the Northwest Territories in Canada. And that every move is going to be scrutinized, every little fuel. I mean, being responsible for a mining business, you know it better than I do. Every little spill of fuel is going to be investigated. You know, square cube of earth is going to be taken out of the ground, shipped out of the place. I can't believe there is the same level of scrutiny and the same level of controls over lab-grown production facilities today. It's not a criticism of them. It's just a different type of business, and it's also it is a new industry, and it is growing in places maybe where the level of scrutiny is just not going to be the same in general, and you can choose where you put it, which makes it a big difference. I don't know whether that's part of what you were mentioning.
Tom?
I was just going to say that's our experience. So we have a facility where we grow diamond, and the scrutiny we went through with all of the local inspections and gas and safety issues. Now, interestingly enough, less than a mile away, we stumbled upon another facility that was growing diamond, but without any declaration of what they were doing in that facility. So I think that kind of supports what Jean-Marc is saying.
But I think also what Jason might have been alluding to, and is why I brought Thierry in as well, is there's other issues that they might be facing, quite apart from the comparison, because after all, you were talking specifically about lab-grown. But I remember, again, going back to the early days when we were doing the nomenclature for the European standard, a lot of the then leading lab-grown producers were saying, you know, this is a benefit to us as well. This is part of why they wanted to come in on it, because they needed differentiation between themselves and the simulants. And this was an issue for them. And so almost like being squeezed, that's how they felt. That was their perception. I'm just reporting that. But that was another sort of issue that they felt. They do feel the heat from simulants. I'm just going to give one last remark. Stefan, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, I was expecting an answer very simple. The synthetics producers have the same requirements as any industry. Act legally and ethically. All the rest doesn't matter. Right. That's what we expect from them. That's what everybody expects from us at an industry. And that's what everybody has to do. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Stefan. I'm afraid we're going to have to draw it to a close there now, but I would like to give each of our distinguished panelists just 30 seconds each just to sum up how they're feeling about this. But before they do that, I'd like to do mine, which is, I think, again, we're very keen from this discussion. I was a little worried about bringing it up and bringing it to an RJC AGM as a panel discussion, as a topic, because it is so contentious. It is there's a lot of emotions. And I think even on the very civilized and open debate we've had now, a couple of times you felt that shimmering underneath too. But I do hope we've come away from this with another understanding. And again, I thank Thierry for bringing that other perspective as well, and for the expertise that came in from elsewhere. But I think, if I'm not wrong, that one of the main things that we need to look at are institutions on the lab-grown side. That needs to be addressed with a matter of some urgency, I think we feel. There needs to be, I think, also on the detection side, it was very good to be updated with Jean-Marc in terms of looking at all the technology out there and making sure that there are standards that, the technology is reliable. Because what is the point in, again, if we're talking about consumer confidence, if someone's buying, or using a detection machine in good faith and it's not actually effective. And then the final point being sort of how do you create some kind of universal or easier access to this, to the technology of detection. But again, I think probably the biggest one of that is institutions. But what's my view worth? It could be, that's my view for what it is worth. So I'll just leave 30 seconds for each, starting, Peter, with you.
Oh, let's finish with me.
No, so I'm taking moderator's prerogative now.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you, Andy, what you said. And it's most important that we have rules in place when we play the game. Yeah? Because you can't play a game without the rules. And this is what we all were talking about in terms of detection, in terms of differentiating the two markets. If the rules are there, it's the only thing we will have is fraud that happens in any industry. Yeah, it's something particular for the diamonds or synthetic diamond industry. It happens, in automotive industry. In any product that the consumer wishes to buy, there will be fraud. So it's already a matter of crime, yeah, and legal offices, yeah, to look at this, and courts to handle. But if the rules are there, the two products can coexist in a normal fashion. The diamonds will be there always, the way I think. The synthetic diamonds will find the niche for the consumers, and there will be, of course, demand for them. And consumers, I think many of them will choose for one occasion maybe a diamond, for some minor occasion, or just for yourself, or just for, I don't know, just for fashion, yes, we call it, because there is another part of it. Maybe they will go for synthetics. But most important is to preserve what we have now, our product, because in the end of the day, it's not only a business. For example, take my company, Alros. It's not only a business for us. It's a way of upholding a whole huge territory that is there where we mine. It's communities, it's people that live for producing this product. It's the nature that we need to preserve, and it's the society to which we actually give back a lot. And if we do not have the end consumer, these people will suffer the most, not the business itself in the end of the day. So I think it's a very important message to say.
It's a very important message, and again, a very fascinating one, but it went slightly off piece, but thank you for making that, Peter. I appreciate it. Didier, 30 seconds.
Okay. No, I think eventually it's all about transparency. I tend to agree with Peter on that. We have the consumer. It's all about the consumer. At the end of the day, we need to give them the product we promised them to give to. So it's about transparency. It's about detection, which forms part of it. It is, ingrained. It is there. There are other elements which are helping to become more transparent as a pipeline. You'll have the blockchains of this world, which is offering some transparency in the way they want to offer it. So I think eventually, it's all about, being as transparent as possible and make sure, that we market the products, both products, in a responsible way with the tools, we should market them to get to, and then leave it to the consumer. At the end of the day, for me, that's the most important message, make sure the consumer can choose.
I think everyone agrees that the consumer is the final arbiter. That's how it should be. But I think, again, when you're sort of talking about transparency, again, in my view, it would be you can't have transparency unless you have institutions that can implement those rules, procedures, and protocols that Peter was talking about just now.
I do agree with you, but it is a new industry, laboratory grown. Therefore, I think for the moment there is only one organization. Eventually, I hope there will be lessons learned, and therefore people will start cooperating with either new associations or institutions, and eventually we'll get there.
Great, Didier, thank you. Thierry.
I believe that my company is the perfect example that both products can live next to each other. I'm trading natural diamonds since 1978. Diamas International stands for the natural diamond. I created the brand Maidstones a few years ago to make a clear distinction between the two products. People were really surprised that I was selling both. But we're doing it in a very open and transparent way. And we didn't lose one customer until today. It's all about, like we said today, about ethics, about transparency. And I think the other companies doing the same thing. They should be actually encouraged to do the same.
Okay.
Because these bring us further.
Great.
The way down.
Good words. Thanks, Thierry. Tom.
So looking backwards and looking at history with what's happened with synthetic ruby, sapphire, etc., the parallel products with natural have existed and existed successfully. I think the responsibility of this detection disclosure has to run the full range of our industry, from producer to consumer.
Sorry, Jean-Marc. Please, your last 30 seconds.
It's hard to come last because it's hard to really just to find another way to
just
say
I
the same
agree
thing.
with everyone.
I tend to agree with everything. Just to share maybe something else in 30 seconds, a piece of research that we've done recently, or two pieces of research we've done recently. One is a tracker we do in the US every 6 months. One thing we ask people is, would you consider buying a synthetic diamond? And what's your awareness of synthetic diamond? Obviously, we describe what a synthetic diamond is. We don't just use the term synthetic diamond. So they know exactly what we're talking about. Within 6 months, what we've seen is awareness is about the same. It's about 70% people know about it and understand. Willingness to consider, which doesn't mean I'm going to buy it. It means to consider is about the same. It's about 70%. Willing to consider of those who know, which are themselves about 70%. But what you've started seeing moving is people ready to consider it for some special moments like engagement, birth of a child has been going down. But the percentage of people ready to consider it for a much more mundane purchase, like everyday kind of wear, has been going up. And I think that's just one little sign, and that is 7 months. Just one little sign of it's going to find its market. And the other one is obviously the way prices have been evolving. If you've all seen the Kempinski report, where price differential of polish has been growing by 70% in 1 year between the two. So we're seeing that distinction happening, and I think there is a lot more to say about smalls in mining, and but things will settle down. But whether they settle down in a healthy manner is what we're all responsible for. Once we play our part. I agree with you on the role of institutions. People who go institutions stay, and they're usually a more balanced voice and a more effective leader than individuals.
Yeah.
So,
great. Well, thank you all. Before I wrap up and do thank everyone, we've got to see this fabulous bit of innovation from Alrosa. So we're going to have that short video now, just to.
We want to boast a bit. Yeah.
Highlight this new detection technology. Please, thank you.
Alrosa Diamond Inspector is a mini laboratory for complex optical test of polished natural diamonds' authenticity to be used by jewelry shops, pawn shops, and gemologists. Test your diamond anytime, anywhere. Protects your business from shady diamonds. Take care of your customers. A great deal of expert experience and effort were put into the device. It was jointly developed by Alrosa Company and ThyssenKrupp Institute. Reliable and economic. The device uses 3 optical methods of diamond analysis. Maximum result reliability is the outcome. The device cost is substantially lower than that of a set of lab equipment using the same methods. Beneficial price-quality ratio. Intelligent and user-friendly. Just one button. Less than a minute per test. The device automatically gives a clear and reliable result. With the help of Diamond Detector and no expert knowledge of your own, you can check if your diamond is real, natural, and untreated. Alrosa Diamond Inspector is a perfect assistant for jewelers, appraisers, and merchandisers. It's like your own portable gemologist. Ample technical capabilities. The device identifies polished natural diamonds and polished enhanced diamonds. It detects non-diamond imitations, including moissanites, and synthetic diamonds grown by HPHT or CVD methods. It tests colorless and near colorless diamonds with various cutting shapes and carat weight ranging from 0.03 to 10 carats. You can test stones in rings, earrings, and other types of jewelry, so convenient holders are included in the kit. Portable and autonomous. Small dimensions and weight. Alrosa Diamond Inspector is the only portable diamond detector on the market designed to identify natural origin of polished diamonds using 3 analytical methods. It doesn't need the internet connection or a computer. It can be powered by a power adapter or power bank. This device will help you save on laboratory and gemologist services. Functional. Ergonomic look of Alrosa Diamond Inspector will fit harmoniously into any interior. The device can be used in jewelry shops, pawn shops, offices, and gemological laboratories. It is very useful on business trips and at business transactions. Sustainable and safe. The device is reliable and safe to use. It doesn't need any special care. A manufacturer warranty is provided for each device. Alrosa Diamond Inspector is an intelligent, reliable, user-friendly portable device. Your regular assistant in jewelry shops, pawn shops, and at business transactions. Buy Alrosa Diamond Inspector and get scientifically proven clear answers to resolve your doubts about diamonds' authenticity fast and easy.
Wow, yes. Go
Thank
Alrosa.
you, Angie.
Well done. Well, thank you again, all of you. I mean, before they start dropping off, I hope some of them haven't already, but just like to thank our audience down the line there, those who have been watching this live feed. Again, we're very happy that you were able to join us. Next time, perhaps, if we have something like this, we'll be able to have some technology where you can ask your own questions as well. But thank you very much indeed for joining us. We really appreciate your company. I'd like to also thank the Alrosa team who helped put all of this together, not just the AGM this morning, but this and the hospitality that we're yet to have the pleasure of experiencing. They're all here, but they're embodied in Peter. But I see Irina, I see Maxim.
I would add to this also. Andy, we should not forget also about our marketing team. The people still work, and I think we need to thank them also.
I fully agree. Let's thank the marketing team as well, because we know that it has been a partnership, because that then brings me on to thanking my own team. They are the ones that were dealing with Alrosa and the marketing team from Alrosa as well, and this has been a fabulous collaboration, not short of some frustration on both sides, I think, but I think in the end, it was a fantastic professional outcome. So I'd like to thank, first of all, Chinello. Where is she? Chinello, sitting down there. Please stand up, Chinello. And Jin, who's standing behind her. And Yelena, who is here as well. Thank you very much indeed for all the effort that you've put in over the months as we've been building up to this. And so that just leads me to, before I really wrap up with the panel, just to say that we do have a reception in the atrium on the 3rd floor, which you're all welcome to just now. We're going to have live music there. We've got another sort of picture, so we can have more fun photographs taken with each other. And there will be a couple of speeches, but it really will be just, again, on a very fun occasion. And then bringing us to the fantastic cultural event tomorrow morning. And just to remind you, you have names, your names, you've been allocated. There are going to be 3 phases for this, three groups going out. The first group will go out at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and the second one at 10, and the third one at 11:20. We ask you please to make sure that you've checked your names against those groups, which group you're in on, and please be prompt, because obviously this is quite a logistical task for our hosts, and it is incredibly generous for them to do this. So please help them by being prompt. We really would appreciate that. And I think that really sort of then leaves me just finally to thank again our fantastic panel of experts. I thank them for accepting our invitation to do this a few months back, for sticking with us on this, and for providing such value to the discussion on such an important issue that we all face as well. So please, a big round of applause for Peter, for Didier, for Thierry, for Tom, and for Jean-Marc. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you to you all. Again, the RJC is nothing without you, and we are always and always will be greater than the sum of our parts. So together, thank you very much indeed. A big round of applause to you.